Hey guys, what is going on, and welcome back to another video on the channel. And today we're going to be looking at my game week 35 team and how I got on, and also looking ahead to game week 36 and more importantly the run-in for the end of the season, because there's only 3 single game weeks left now, no doubles or anything to speak of, and we know pretty much all of the permutations for other teams and competitions. So it really is just attacking or defending in these 3 single game weeks now. We know that the FA Cup final is City versus Palace. We know that Spurs and United are very likely to make the final, though Spurs have done crazy things in the past. And we also know that Arsenal are out of the Champions League. So we can really sort of plan, hopefully, these last 3 weeks now, look at teams that we want to target. Are we going to target teams that have got a lot to play for, teams that have less to play for? And hopefully it's an interesting last few weeks. But yeah, today we're just going to be looking at maybe any remaining chips and how we might be able to use those, and stuff like that. So let's just hop straight into this one and go through my team from game week 35. And it wasn't the most exciting game week. I don't think anyone had a particularly crazy game week. A lot of the sort of major assets didn't do too much, like the highly owned assets, and there wasn't too many great captaincy shouts. But if you got crucial decisions right, you would have had a good week. And I said in my last video that captaincy was really important this week, and it proved to be. It really proved to be, because for my own team I got it wrong, and I kind of went with a bit of a last minute change here, which I don't usually do, but I thought with only a few game weeks to go I wanted to be quite attacking, and I thought that Marmoush was a really attacking pick. I really liked his upside. I know we've seen him come into the Premier League and score a hat-trick, and we've seen what he's capable of. And I just thought that even though Wolves have been good, it might have been one of those games where he sort of shows us again, or reminds us what he can do, and has a really good showing. So obviously being on pens as well, I thought he was a decent shout, and I want to say I got a little bit lucky with the Mbermo one, because I didn't think his ceiling was that high. 4-3 wasn't actually what I expected from that Brentford United game. United don't usually concede too many goals. I expected like a 2-1. So I figured Mbermo would at best maybe get a goal and assist, and I was willing to bet against that. Turns out I was right in my thinking that he wouldn't do very well, but they did score 4 goals. So I am counting myself lucky that he only got 1 assist, even though it was a jammy FPL rebounded shot type assist. But yeah, I wanted to bet against that because I just thought that was a really boring captaincy pick. And actually my initial hunch was Isak, but for different reasons as to how he returned, because I thought that would be more of an open game. Brighton tend to concede a lot of goals, but actually it turned out to be quite cagey, and he only ended up getting that last minute pen and collected all the bonus points, which is usually quite unlike Isak. He doesn't usually get too many bonus points, but because it was a low scoring game, he did, and he ended up being one of the best captaincy choices, unless you went with a Bowen or a De Bruyne or something like that. But yeah, captaincy turned out to be a real swinger, and it wasn't helpful for me at all. And actually, I got a lot of decisions wrong here, but decisions that I'm happy with because I made them for a reason, right? Like I benched Evan Nielsen because I had double Arsenal defence. And I know you can look at this and say if you played Evan Nielsen and benched Kiwi or played Williams, you're up like 10 points. And that's very true. But, in my mind, I was like, if I play Evan Nielsen, I'm hoping he scores against my double Arsenal defence. If I play Nico Williams, I'm hoping my double Palace attack blank. So you've got to chase the upside. And if Arsenal had kept that clean sheet and Palace had kept that clean sheet, it would have been a larger upside. So I think for me, I'm happy with the decision. And Evan Nilsson was just never really going to play over any of the other assets for me. I thought Rodgers had a really good game and I expected him to have a good game because they had a little bit of rest. And he was unlucky not to return. I was always going to play my double Palace against Forest because I just fancied them at home. Again, I think Sarr had a really good game too and just unlucky not to return. And then I was never going to bench any of the other attackers. So I think that's kind of how my team had to be. So just unfortunate to get some bench points there, but that happens, you have to have a bench. So yeah, on the whole, Eze kind of saved my game week. I think I dropped a few thousand places. If Forest didn't score, then it would have been a much bigger green. Also, it would have been a green. But yeah, on the whole, not really too much to gain, not really too much to lose from this game week. I don't think anyone made monumental gains, but well done to you if you did. And all eyes really now on the final few weeks and how we can attack them. So I'm just going to go straight into FPL team to see how my team's lining up for the last few weeks. And this is my current state of affairs leading into game week 36. And as you can see, this is my team without a transfer. I've got the captaincy on Mbermo. I am going to go with him this week, I think. Obviously, if we get confirmation that Marmoush starts, I think he's a good captain again. But with Haaland back, is there a possibility of an early substitute now? I don't think so. I think he probably stays on, but I'm not sure. And I think the Ipswich fixture is good enough for me, for Mbermo, that I'd be happy to just go with him. But I will consider Marmoush captaincy. And I will also consider a couple of other captaincies if I bring in any other players. But I think for me, that's the route to go right now. In terms of the rest of my team and some of the fixtures that we've got this week, there's a lot of popular transfers that are being made, which I don't think I'm too fond of. I almost think it's one of those weeks where some of the players that people are selling have pretty good fixtures and it's probably not the time to sell them. I think people have just kind of got this, like, we had double game weeks, then we had free hits. And a lot of people have been sitting on these assets for a little while now and they're quite keen to move them on. But I think you kind of just have to have a little bit of patience. At least that's how I see it. So, for me, I feel like I've been staring at Munoz, Eze and Sarr in my team for ages now. And, it's been 5 or 6 game weeks. But I just think their fixture this week is really good again. Like, there's just no way I'm selling Eze and Sarr or Munoz before Spurs away. Like, I think it's a great time to play them. They've got a very long flight and arduous sort of event before they play Crystal Palace this weekend. And they're probably going to rotate heavily anyway. So Eze's bang in form. And if you've got Sarr, he's also in form. He had a great FA Cup game and he looked really dangerous against Forest the other day. And we all know what Munoz can do. If you've got Mateta, it was only one Premier League game ago that he scored that outrageous goal against Arsenal. And we know what he can do. Like, are you really going to tell me that Wissa is a better option than Mateta or worth a transfer? I'm not so sure. Especially if you've got Mbermo to cover. Ipswich don't tend to usually leak too many goals. Like, not more than Spurs anyway. So I think Wissa is a good transfer, but I think this week unless you're particularly high on it for this week and you really don't fancy Palace, I think it's okay to wait for a week. And maybe you'll even want someone else by that point. It's always good to gain information in this game, even with a couple of weeks to go. So I would bet on Mateta starting and returning against Spurs. So I wouldn't make any Palace transfers this week. And we'll go ahead to game week 37 and look at those Palace players and see what maybe we can do with them. But in terms of the rest of my team, I'm playing Raya in goal. I could play for Bruggen, but do I think both teams concede? Yes. I think Arsenal concede, and I think Brighton concede. Who do I think has got the bigger chance of a haul? I think Raya, because I think they could go there with a point to prove. I think he's going to make a lot of saves. He just saved a penalty in the Champions League. Brighton, they just always concede. And I expect Wolves to score. So if I expect both teams to lose their clean sheet, then I may as well play the goalie of the better team, even though Verbruggen is probably more of a differential. I may change this, but that's just how I feel about it right now, especially with benching Kiwior. Vardio against Southampton, nothing to say there. Nico Williams, if you've got a Forest defender, this is the week we bought him for. Salah can return against any team. I'm not looking to take him out for anyone. Rodgers, I don't love this fixture. I think there's a lot to play for in this fixture, and I don't see it being high scoring. So this is one of those where I'm looking at Evan Nilsson on the bench, and I'm looking at Rodgers and thinking either one of those could get one return here, but who's it going to be? And there's a decision to be made. And if I wanted to make a transfer, one of those would miss out for me. And Burma, obviously, he starts and gets captained. As a Chelsea fan, I don't want to play Isak, but they're at home, and I think he's got a good chance at scoring. I think we look great in these last couple of games. I think we've sort of got our balance return to the team with Lavia and basically all of our ideal starting 11. But he's just so good, and I think if you have him, you kind of have to play him. But I could bench him for Evan Nilsson. I don't think I will. And then Marmoush, obviously, who we've spoken about. I do still have my bench boost, but without making a couple of transfers, I don't think I like it this week. And you'll see why, because I've got a plan for it coming up. So, yeah, that's my team for this week. That's a couple of my thoughts for this week in general. I think potential other captaincy shouts, if people have got them, would be Bowen against United. I think anyone like a Wissa or Cunha, if you've got them, you could go for. You could captain a Palace asset, but I think Mbeumo is going to be it for me. But anyway, I'm thinking of rolling my transfer. As you can see, I've got one transfer and 4.3 in the bank. So I'm playing with quite low starting 11 value at the moment. But I think that's just kind of the way that the game is right now. I don't really have anyone to use it on. The one move that I would have considered in game week 36 would have been Sarr to Palmer. And that's not because I don't think Sarr could do well against Spurs, but it's because I'm probably going to sell him anyway. And I think Palmer's a good option for the rest of the season. But I think I was about 0.5 off, so I can't make that move. But this is my team in game week 37, and I've got one transfer planned, and that's Eze to Clive. And I know it seems a bit mad, but this is to set up future moves. And basically this is kind of both of my Palace assets. In fact, probably all of my Palace assets will go before the end of this season. And it's kind of just which one I sell, or if I sell both in this week, because this Wolves game is a couple of days after their FA Cup final, and I just don't know what sort of lineup to expect. So I want players that are going to play, and I think this is a good week to start selling them. So Clivert is someone that I like as an asset. I think he's delivered in big matches this year. And as you'll see, I really like him for game week 38. I will then have another transfer this week, and I could use it to remove Sarr. But I'm not too sure on who that would be for yet, because I do have an early transfer penciled in for 38. And for 38, I would then be using all of my transfers in the final game week of the season, and I'll be bringing in Saka for Sarr. So all my Palace assets will be gone as I'm replacing Munoz with Kirkez. So this would leave me with 0.3 in the bank and all of my transfers used. And this would be my team going into the final day of the season. And I'd really be hoping for something big here. I'd be playing my bench boost, which would be Verbruggen away at Spurs, which is a fixture I don't mind. And then as you can see, I really like the fixtures for the rest of my bench. Evan Nilsson at home to Leicester is a fantastic fixture. I'd have triple Bournemouth for that. Kyrgios at Southampton, can't ask for too much more. And then I really fancy Newcastle to just do the job against Everton on the final day. And I know you probably hear lots of people talking about rotation on the final day, but can anyone tell me that they think players from these teams will rotate? I think when I look at this lineup, I very much expect all of these players to start. And I wanted to point this out for game week 38, because there are some teams that may rotate, but arguably there'll be teams that don't really need to play their full teams. But if we look at my team, I mean, Raya will play. He's Arsenal's keeper. All three of those Bournemouth players will play. I think they'll still be in with a chance of Europe. They're going to want to finish strong. Kirkez is, someone that they're probably going to sell. So they're going to want to get a lot of money from him. And, he's going to be someone that will always play for them. So I think all of the Bournemouth assets start, because they're still fighting. Vardiol is City's main centre-back. They're still fighting. They may still be fighting by the end. Forest definitely will be. Salah always plays. Arsenal got nothing else to play for, and they'll want to finish the season strong. Rodgers is a minutes machine. So is Mbermo. Newcastle are still fighting. City, obviously, we've mentioned. And then that kind of covers the bench as well. So I really like this team for game week 38. And I think it kind of maybe means suffering a little bit in 37. As we saw, this isn't the finest team. I could do Sarr to Saka a week early. And I think I might now, because Arsenal are out. But I don't need to do that if I don't want to. I can monitor the Palace situation. But this would then be my team for game week 38, which I really, really like. So I think don't be scared to target the last day of the season for these certain teams if it makes sense for you, because I don't think there'll be as much rotation as people are making it out to be. If you've got bench boost and your bench looks really good on this week, use it for this week. If you can use it sooner, then obviously do that. And I also think if you've still got your triple captain, this is the best week to use. I think Saka at Southampton is definitely the best fixture. And I also think Salah at Palace, Salah at home to Palace is right up there. If you want a good fixture to target. So that's pretty much my plan for the last few game weeks of the season. And I think in general, I kind of, my advice would be to people, don't necessarily make sideways moves for these last few weeks. I know that people are trying to either attack or defend your rank, but if you're thinking of like a Mateta to a Wissa or something like that, maybe look at other places in your team and see if there's other players that might be able to gain you a little bit more rank. Like there's certainly other positions that could have a massive swing. The keeper's one of them. Like if you've got a Raya, like maybe you don't want to play him against Liverpool or Newcastle and you've got a spare transfer, maybe you could move him to like a Flecken or something like that. Or if you're not sure on Marmoush's minutes, maybe you can switch him to another striker. But I think for at least for game week 36, for this upcoming game week, most of the popular assets have got pretty good fixtures and I probably look to hold. But yeah, guys, that's going to be pretty much it for this video. Hope you enjoyed watching, and please do like and subscribe and leave comments down below to get a discussion starting if you guys want to talk about anything or you have any questions. But other than that, I'll see you on the next one and have a good game week.